I have said this so many times that it should go without saying at this point. Women's college basketball is not popular. The WNBA damn sure ain't popular. Caitlyn Clark is the driving force behind the elevation of both.
Have you noticed the recent decline in college basketball ratings for women? One player quit the game, which is why they're in free fall. No way it can't be that horrible, you may be thinking. However, the figures are startling. Since Caitlyn Clark's time on the court, the number of people watching the best games has drastically decreased. What's happening is women's basketball having trouble without its best players. It wasn't simply Clark who lit up the court. Fans couldn't get enough of the game once she changed it. You will be astounded by the numbers, so let's examine them. Clark's performance drew 582,000 viewers. It's more than just good. That's competition on par with the NFL. Is it not unbelievable? College women's basketball players are drawing audiences comparable to those of professional football. For you, that's the Caitlyn Clark effect.
Do you want me to just say I told you so, or are you willing to say, Stephen A., you did tell? Really? Caitlyn Clark is the golden goose.
But now everything is falling apart. Last Sunday, the former Katie Roos from Iowa, they played Virginia Tech on ESPN2. They drew an abysmal 209,000 viewers. Just imagine. Top games are barely scraping 209,000 viewers. That's a staggering 64% drop. Ouch. It's like the excitement just vanished overnight. You might be thinking, maybe it's just a bad game or two. Nope, this isn't a one-time thing. We're seeing this trend everywhere, and it's only getting worse. The game between Iowa and Toledo last week, 136,000 viewers. That's right, when Iowa played Toledo, only 136,000 people tuned in. That's less than a quarter of what Clark pulled in. It's like the air got sucked out of the arena and nobody bothered to turn on their TVs. I wasn't watching women's basketball last season until the tournament. Now that Caitlyn Clark has moved on, I will definitely not be watching this season. However, based on the ratings, it appears that I am not the only one who is not watching, and no one else is looking. Perhaps you're thinking if there's another reason. It's possible that the games are on different networks or at different times. Not at all. This is when things start to get interesting. These games, their time slots coincide. The same channels that Clark used to play on, except for one thing, nothing has changed. Caitlyn Clark is gone. They were on the Big Ten network, though, KC, and nobody watches that channel. Yes, indeed. Last season, Caitlyn Clark was attracting viewers on the Big Ten network. Since it's only the beginning of the season, some contend that it's premature to make any judgments about college basketball's future. But that's what they said about the NBA, isn't it? However, it continues to struggle. Ratings are rapidly declining. These are extremely early returns. Only 2 nationally aired games have ratings available. Is there reason to be concerned at the moment? No. Should anyone be concerned now? No. However, once the NBA's opening week ratings were terrible, the media made the same statement. And now, 3 weeks later, the NBA remains a massive, shameful disaster. A lot of people also contend that several of these games are similar to NFL games, but keep in mind that Caitlyn Clark had to deal with similar circumstances. She wasn't limited to competing with NFL ratings either. She smashed them. They were up against the NFL KC. After all, that game was also broadcast on ESPN2. Because it's next to ESPN, another network that nobody watches, it's difficult to find that channel. Yes, that is accurate. It's accurate. However, when Caitlyn Clark's first nationally televised game was shown on ESPN2 last season, she was playing against the NFL. In other words, last Sunday, Caitlyn Clark was coping with the same circumstances that the former Roos were. In spite of this, Caitlyn Clark managed to attract 583,000 views. What does it say about the sport if one player can make such a huge difference? Does it depend too much on star power? What occurs if the next big celebrity leaves? With no understudy to attract the same audiences, women's college basketball feels like a one-woman show that recently lost its star. This should be obvious by now because I've stated it so many times. College basketball for women is not very popular. The WNBA isn't very well liked. Both have been elevated due to Caitlyn Clark's efforts. What comes next then? That is the crucial question. Will another athlete emerge and draw national attention in the same way that Clark did? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a significant decline in women's college basketball viewership? There is no doubt about that. In the upcoming weeks, everyone will be keenly monitoring those data. Even if the game is the same, it's completely different without Caitlyn Clark. But that's not all. As the next great thing, the media continue to promote names like Angel Reese and Paige Buchers. But you know what? The attendance figures and ratings paint an entirely different picture. Is a once-in-a-generation superstar essential to the survival of this sport? The influence of Caitlyn Clark has been minimized by the mainstream media. Consider the case of Angel Reese. Do you recall her? The media was obsessed with her, portraying her as the next Caitlyn Clark. Here's the startling reality, though. She was unable to sell out LSU home games. Is it not unbelievable? The arena remained empty despite one of the most well-known names in women's college basketball. Because Angel Reese was not selling out home games at the Chicago high school gym, her lack of skill is the one thing that transferred over to the WNBA. Do you hear that? Okay, but that's just college ball, you may be thinking. But what about her professional career? It's going to get much more crazy, so hold on to your hats. You would think that Reese would be packing up her home after joining the WNBA. False. The audiences simply weren't arriving as everyone had anticipated, even at smaller locations. It's as if the star power that seemed so strong in college suddenly vanished. It's not just Reese either. As if they were attempting to produce the next big star, the media continued to promote other names as well. They also couldn't stop chatting about Paige Beckers. The problem is that the numbers are honest. These guys simply weren't drawing in as many viewers as Clark, regardless of how much publicity they received. The media has attempted to attribute the growth of women's basketball to anyone other than Caitlyn Clark. However, we were once again provided with more evidence that, in the absence of Caitlyn Clark, women's basketball is unable to attract fans. What is actually happening here then? Women's basketball is beginning to appear to be more than just having difficulties. We can see how much it depends on star power. And not just any star power, but the kind of talent that only comes around once every 10 years or so. You may make any reason you want, but the fact is that without Caitlyn Clark, women's college basketball isn't as popular. More than any other sport, basketball depends largely on celebrity endorsements. You don't have an audience if you lack star power. Consider it. How often have you heard someone remark, "I'm excited to watch the Aces play rather than I'm excited to see Aja Wilson"? Individual players, not teams, are always the focus. And it is an issue. Because what occurs if that elite athlete retires, graduates, or is hurt, the entire sport suffers. Just take a look at what has happened to men's college basketball over the past 10 or 15 years if you don't believe me. Men's basketball has been ruined by the NBA's one and done rule. College basketball is no longer the only topic of discussion here. It's also a serious red flag for the WNBA. They will have a difficult time if they are unable to develop interest in the game itself rather than just in specific players. These are only the ratings for 2 November games. We shouldn't worry just yet. As of now, there is nothing to be concerned about. However, this season is crucial for collegiate women's basketball. And what's going on in women's collegiate basketball this season? It might portend future events related to the WNBA dump. Not just another collegiate talent has joined the WNBA as a challenger, a genuine threat has been developing right in front of everyone's eyes while they have been observing Caitlyn Clark. In ways the WNBA never anticipated, the Unrivaled League is upending the status quo. It's comparable to Ice Cube's Big Three League, with the exception that Unrivaled will only include active WNBA players, whereas the Big Three will only include actual basketball players who have played in the NBA. The WNBA had no serious competition for 30 years. However, the Unrivaled League is currently altering the rules. It may seem like simple 3-on-3 games to you. False. The WNBA is uneasy about this league's strong support. In private, though, I wonder if Kat Engelbert is worried. Hell, I hope she's worried for their sake. I would expect that those with more intelligence than I do would consider this horrific possibility if my idiot did. This is when things get crazy. TNT funds are supporting the Unrivaled League. Yes, the same TNT that lost the NBA broadcasting rights after holding them for a while. They are now desperate for revenge and eager for a resurgence. What if TNT chooses to fully commit to this new league? They have the power and resources to fundamentally alter the sport and usher in a new age that may be comparable to anything we've seen in the past. It goes without saying that you will never harm the NBA if they are seeking retribution. The NBA has too much authority. They have a well-established basis. The NBA's enormous ass wouldn't be inconvenienced by the establishment of a new basketball league. However, targeting the WNBA would be the only option for TNT to exact revenge on the NBA. Consider the implications for the WNBA. All of a sudden, they're up against a league that has the ability to pay players more in a single game than they would in a season. Furthermore, the Unrivaled League season concludes prior to the WNBA season, a season commencing. Gamers may do both. These days, the WNBA is fighting for more than just fans. They struggle to maintain their own players' concentration. Playing in the WNBA trash has been your only choice besides playing abroad, where you run the danger of spending months on vacation with Vlad Puder. The WNBA will have genuine competition for the first time with the rise of Unrivaled, which may be particularly true if Unrivaled is successful. And I'm not referring to on-court competition. Is this really that big of a deal, you ask? However, that's precisely the point. This has never been a problem for the WNBAs. The only game in town has always been theirs. They are now in unfamiliar land. What happens if Unrivaled succeeds? What happens if Unrivaled joins the WNBA as a rival? And consider this what would happen if the Unrivaled League became successful. Are the top players leaving? Do WNBA games becoming less appealing to fans than Unrivaled? What about those TV deals and all those sponsors? Therefore, keep in mind that there is much more at stake than just the score the next time you watch a WNBA game. The league is up against its greatest obstacle to date, and how they respond to it might have a profound impact. The WNBA must carefully consider its next course of action because they are now competing to survive rather than just win. Let's discuss the contributions that Clark makes. We're not only referring to her amazing court vision or scoring prowess. A whole new generation of players could be inspired by Clark. Imagine Caitlyn's example inspiring young girls all throughout the nation to pick up a basketball. We're talking about that kind of impact. However, inspiration alone isn't enough. Clark has the opportunity to completely transform women's basketball. Consider this: she might compel the WNBA to reconsider everything, including player compensation and marketing tactics. If she joins the Unrivaled League, she would be launching a completely new era in women's sports, not merely joining a team. However, what would be the only method for TNT to exact revenge on the NBA? Targeting the WNBA and giving players 3 or 4 times as much money. Caitlyn Clark, for example, might earn more in a single game than the WNBA pays her for the season if she accepts Unrivaled's offer. Once more, I'm not sure if this is true. Clark is expected to increase the WNBA's viewership. Most likely, they have already begun to plan everything from marketing campaigns to jersey designs. However, what happens if she doesn't arrive? What if Clark chooses to instead showcase her skills in the Unrivaled League? The world of women's basketball would be rocked like never before. Not to be overlooked is Clark's legacy. She has the opportunity to do something that no one has ever done before. She might be the one who altered the rules and made the establishment pay attention. Clark would not only be a top player in the Unrivaled League, but she would also be setting an example for others to follow. It's in your offseason, yes, rather than being a traditional basketball league, it's a 3-on-3 league. However, that does not imply that Unrivaled will always play 3-on-3. The fact that they are now playing during your offseason does not guarantee that this will continue to be the case. If you're TNT and you want to exact revenge on Adam Silver in the NBA, you can only do so by targeting the weakest link, the WNBA. The choice of a single player is no longer the only consideration here. It concerns women's professional basketball's future. Others may jump ship if Clark does. All of a sudden, the WNBA is losing more than just a star. They may be dealing with a change in the sport as a whole. Finally, TNT was able to exact their retribution. The network and the league appear to be at odds with each other. Can you guess who is funding Unrivaled? Who do you think will be Unrivaled's exclusive television home? TNT? It goes without saying that you will never harm the NBA if they are seeking retribution. The NBA has too much authority. They have a well-established basis. The NBA's enormous ass wouldn't be inconvenienced by the establishment of a new basketball league. However, what would be the only method for TNT to exact revenge on the NBA? Pursuing the WNBA.